Hey there, everybody. I'm Ashley.
Hey, I'm Stephanie.
We are the founders of Connection Experiment. And today we're going to take you through some of our journal prompts that we have that accompany each week module from our courses to dig a little deeper and help us connect to our inner artist.
Yeah, we're really excited to be here. And I know it's a journey for all of us, with music and trying to be our most authentic selves. So we wanted to kind of give you some insight into where we're at and be as authentic and vulnerable as we possibly can be about our own journey because we're on it too. And so we're really looking forward to having some honest conversation with you guys about these journal prompts that we made. Because guess what? We made these journal prompts because we think about them a lot and they obviously affect our artistry and our creativity. So I feel like we should just kind of dive in. The topic is what again, Ashley?
Well, so this is from week 1 of our Intro to Piano 1 course, our digital course. And the questions are, do you care what other people think of you? And then, do you think it's possible to have the courage to accept your imperfection when it comes to music and to express yourself regardless of what other people think of you? Stephanie, would you like to start or do you want
to? Oh man, I have a lot of things to say about that. I do really care what people think of me, unfortunately. And fortunately, because I think that's pretty relatable, right?
Yeah, I think that's the human experience. I think we all do to an extent.
Yeah. Like, I literally was saying maybe, we shouldn't do this Zoom recording because I haven't washed my hair in days and I am not feeling super fresh. And I also, I'm going to talk about how I care about what people think of me. So this is really exciting. But, honestly, I think that just being real about the fact that it's like, well, yes, I have that knee-jerk reaction to care about what other people think of me, but I don't actually think that what other people's opinion of me should, well, I don't like shoulds, but I don't think that they should change how I feel about myself. And that's the only instance I think shoulds are helpful, is like, you shouldn't have to internalize other people's thoughts about you, whether they're good or bad. So I've really been working on self-compassion because I'm imperfect just like everybody else, and I am really tired of trying to pretend like I don't have issues or struggles or face challenges. And so I think that this topic is really important because if you can acknowledge that, yeah, there's a part of me that cares about what other people think of me, but what matters the most, obviously, is that self-acceptance that I can only give to myself. So I guess, we'll just kind of riff off of that theme, but it really relates to my musicianship and my life. And so I'm really working on letting go of what other people think of me and prioritizing that self-acceptance that honestly probably comes first.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think for me, like in my musical journey, I almost quit piano because of what other people thought of me. Way back when, like I was competing and performing all the time, and it got to be really difficult to do these competitions and to be told like, oh, that's not good enough, or, this is what's wrong with that, this is what's wrong with that. And it got pretty exhausting, and I think I was pretty tied up in what other people thought about me because these people that were judging me were professionals and they were further along in their careers than I was, and they were experts, and so their opinions meant a lot, and I really held those opinions with a lot of weight in my musical journey. And I burnt out, and I got to the point where I almost quit. And so I think since then, for me, it's really been a struggle of like, okay, how do I take people's feedback? How do I accept that I don't know everything, because I really don't, and I want people's influence and I want people's feedback when it comes to music, and also I want to make sure that I'm being kind to myself. And like you said, Stephanie, practicing self-compassion to really lift myself up in my musical journey as opposed to tearing myself down. And I think that's something that I see my students and just other musicians get caught in as well, is this idea of like, we are our own worst critic, and it's really easy to tell ourselves all the things that went wrong. And oftentimes those things that we're telling ourselves that maybe aren't compassionate or maybe aren't kind are versions of our fears about what we think other people might think about us. So, when I do recitals with my students, like, oh, well, what if people think I'm bad? Or what if people think I look silly? Or what if people think this is a stupid song? Things like that. Those are all fears that come up. And that's an interesting and such a human thing, because in that case, it's not even really what people are actually thinking of you. It's like this fear of what we think people might think about us, which, because it's tainted by our own inner critic, is probably a lot worse than what other people are actually going to think of us.
It's so true. It's so true. And I think that, like, the next prompt is like, do you think it's possible to have the courage to accept your imperfections when it comes to music and express yourself regardless of what others think? And this is a daily thing for me. But I have found that, you know, yes, we are our own worst critic for sure. But there are also others. There's structures in place and standards in place that definitely do externalize that insecurity, and sometimes it is forced on us. And I can think of a couple times in my own life where that happened. And I think that it's more like, you know, like Ashley said, she was like, you're gonna quit, right? Like, you were literally gonna quit. Absolutely, me too. Like, there was a couple points in my life where I was like, I absolutely cannot do this. Like, I can't handle the pressure of needing to be perfect or have a certain sound or have a particular style. And you know, in grad school, I was, you know, initially, you know, I had to re-audition to get the performance degree for the master's program, because my audition totally sucked and I didn't make it into the performance degree. So I had to re-audition. And luckily, you know, I'd switched over to a teacher who saw some talent in me when I got to the university. But before that, one of the ladies I was working with, she had actually said, you know, I really think you should just stick with the arts degree. You know, it'll be a lot safer, and then you don't have to worry about the whole performance thing. And it was kind of like that moment where she was just like giving me permission to give up on myself, you know. And then I realized that I really care about performing, and I really care about expressing myself through my instrument, regardless of whether or not I maybe fit this academic standard. I really wanted it. And so luckily, like, you know, the universe or whatever you believe in, it always kind of takes care of us in mystical ways. And I was able to transfer to an instructor who was able to draw out of me those things that really stood out. And then, but coming up to that, I was like, oh my gosh, like, you're right. You know, the first thing you want to do is say that the other person is right. You're right. I'm not a performer. You know, you're right. Like, I shouldn't have the right to, you know, continue with this passion of mine because I don't fit the academic standard right now. But luckily, you know, you can do a different set of things to overcome that. And also, at the end of the day, it's sort of like you decide. But there's like these refining moments, right, where you're like, like, should I keep going? Like, I mean, do I really have what it takes? I mean, really. And so I think that the whole idea of having the courage to accept my imperfections, like, yes, I am an imperfect being. Yes, like, I want to embrace my own musical, authentic voice. And yes, maybe some people aren't going to enjoy it. And all of those things can be true, you know? Like, it's okay if maybe the way that I play doesn't resonate with somebody. And it's also okay for me to keep performing and sharing my authentic self. Like, both of those things are okay. So that's kind of how I come to the table with music, is like, I have the courage to accept my imperfections because A, we are all human, but B, like, you just give what you got, and either it resonates with people or it doesn't. And at the end of the day, don't let that be the thing that stops you from finding that thing that's special inside of you. So I haven't arrived, but those are some of my thoughts.
I love that. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that, you know, it's a daily practice. I think it is for me as well. It's definitely not something where you just decide that you're going to accept your imperfection and then, woohoo, now I'm done with that struggle. That's definitely not what it is. It's something that comes up daily. Every time I practice, every time I play for someone, it comes up in teaching when I have to remind my students of the same thing. And it's something that I really have to, like, live, breathe, and think about all the time and remind myself to do. And I think there's so many things that can be helpful, you know, meditation, mindfulness, affirmations, different things like that. But ultimately, I think really self-compassion, like you mentioned, is a huge tool. One of my favorite books, actually, not necessarily because of the book itself, but just because the content of the book, is Self-Compassion by Kristen Neff. And you've read that one too. Yeah, it's an amazing one. And she has, like, a guided meditations on her website and stuff. I'll link those in the description below if anybody's interested in them, because those are really wonderful. So take a minute. If you don't already have this journal, you can get it as a free PDF on our website, and we'll link the website in the description below. And download this journal, reflect on these questions yourself, and don't be afraid to go deep. And if you want access to more journal prompts and to the piano lessons and, theories and courses that go along with this, you can, of course, find that on our website as well. Yeah. Thanks so much for being here with us today.
Bye, everybody.
See you later.